Yes guys, how's it going? Welcome back to a new video. I tell you what, start of a new week, Monday, same old Newcastle, isn't it? Reports coming out today that Brentford now wants 60 million for WISSA, and he has kicked off and thrown all of his toys out of the pram, and Newcastle are now exploring with 12 days left of the window, are exploring new striker options. Yeah, I will say, the game against Villa at the weekend, 0-0, disappointed in the end. A game where I would have taken a draw. You know, before we got anywhere near the game at the weekend, I would have taken a draw. Going into it, we've had, a really frustrating summer window, lots of negativity. And if we'd got in against Villa, and bearing in mind how we've done the last time we've played, particularly at Villa Park, if we'd got in and got a 3-0 hiding, it would have been meltdown. Instead, I came away from the game at the weekend feeling fairly positive. Despite not having a striker, I thought we created quite a lot of opportunities. I thought Elanga had a really good debut. I think Gordon and Elanga, Barnes was pretty absent, so we could do with a little bit of help over on that left-hand side. But I think aside from scoring a goal, we were pretty good. But that was key. And I said it in my video, I really didn't want to feed the narrative of, oh, well, if only we had Isak. But, kind of how it was. Like if it was Isak or Shearer or anyone, a striker, I think we'll pick up 2 or 3 goals in that game and we'll go on to win. So, I'm looking at the positive sides coming out of that one. I'm thinking WISSA's only round the corner. The talk is we're getting close on that deal, so if we get WISSA in time this week, in time for Liverpool, in time for the window closing, then we can move on and we can have that forward. No, nothing is ever that easy. So 2 things really, 2 things. The first one is we clearly needed a striker. I mentioned it in my, Elanga threw on, I thought Elanga was really good. I think there was a reason he looked good. Murphy, loads of great assists last season, and he did score some goals last season. I think, I was taking the mick, but I think I could have got a few assists last season if I was crossing the ball to Isak. So without Isak, I think we needed Elanga. He looked just that little bit sharper and just that little bit more direct. A couple of times I'm just thinking, just take a deep breath, lad, and slot it in the bottom corner. The one that he blazed across the goal. The Tino Livramento ball across the front of the 6-yard box, and Gordon was nowhere near it. So you've got the game screaming out for a striker, and then on the other side of that, you've got the media reaction to Alexander Isak. So it's just funny now all of a sudden that the media's on our side, and it's not just Shearer. I think he's been shouting it for a while. So big up to Shearer doing that on Match of the Day, calling Isak out for what it is. Wayne Rooney backed him up as well. You've got Ian Wright, Gary Neville, Roy Keane on the overlap thing. They've been criticising Alexander Isak. So essentially, in the last kind of week or so, with it has kind of really been magnified to what Isak's up to. So now you've got 2 things there. You've got the game where we need a striker, and then you've got the media talking about how Isak's a pillock and Newcastle need a striker. So what do Brentford do? They turn around and go, we realise you're a bit desperate, so can we have a little bit more money on this one? Reports initially were 30, 35, million. And realistically, it was always going to be higher than that. WISSA's 29 years old and 1 year left on his deal, but no one's going cheap. No one. I like Jacob Ramsey, now officially announced by the club. I think he will be a great player to come into his side, hopefully ignite his career. I could do a whole video on that, to be honest, because Tyrone Mings and loads of Aston Villa players posting out saying that they're unhappy about it, and essentially it was because of PSR. Aston Villa fans saying, oh, well, good. A lot of Villa fans are sad that he's had to leave, so I think that's probably a good thing for us. It shows that, people were very didn't want him to go. Some, I think, reaction was, oh, well, if he doesn't want to play a good riddance, and Mings come out and went, no, I won't have anybody giving him stick. So I think he's probably a bit of both. He's probably similar Longstaff, boyhood club, probably didn't really want to go. Elliot Anderson, but now that I'm having to go, I'll go and make the best of it. And then Anderson has an absolute blinder at the weekend. Gives the ball to Chris Wood, who scores. You know, somebody else that was sold. Remember when we sold Chris Wood for 30 million and we thought it was a good deal? You know, and now Brentford want 60 million for WISSA. And look, he scored 30 goals across the last 2 seasons, 15 goals a season. It's not bad, but it's not 60 million. I would argue it's not 50 million. I would probably say it's 35. Let's say 40 plus 5. 60's getting crazy now. And understandably, Newcastle are having to reconsider their options. And, you know, WISSA is not a happy bunny. Has essentially removed his profile picture from his Instagram. He's removed Brentford from his Twitter or whatever. He's basically gone blackout on all of his social medias because he's not happy. And look, I'm not gonna sit here, you know, and slay Brentford for that. It's totally their prerogative. It's similar with the Isak one. I understand why Brentford are doing it, but it's just so Newcastle United. We just when you think we're starting to do things right and we might actually get something sorted for a change, it manages to go wrong. Brentford have just brought their replacement in. They brought in Otara from Bournemouth, who I think, you know, is a good player on a longer term. 42 million. Like, for me, that was high. So in no world was Brentford ever going to charge us less than 42 million. I think for me, they were always going to charge more because essentially what they want is they're going to move out a 29-year-old player and they're going to bring in a younger player as a replacement. But they're not going to do it for less money. Although you could argue because WISSA is older and because he's only got 1 year deal left, then actually it would work out. But they know the situation we're in. They were always going to offer more. I thought Newcastle would go on to pay the 50 million, but the reports are that Brentford wants 60. The thing is that I think I hope it gets done. I do not want to pay 50 million for WISSA, but I think their initial evaluation was 50 million. And it's at the point now where we look so desperate. The Isak situation's going nowhere. We don't have a striker. Brentford, I am not surprised. They have gone, all right, we're going to make it 60 then. And now Newcastle are reportedly having to turn to other striker options. Ramos has been heavily linked in the last couple of days. The PSG striker, reports are that PSG would be open for him to leave. It looked like he was maybe going to go, and then it actually looked like he'd kind of made his decision to stay. Well, similar to the Ekitike situation. You know, he went there, never got a game. Ramos has gone there from Benfica. I think he's probably got a goal in every 2 games, so a fairly decent record over there. And bearing in mind, a lot of those games have been from the bench. I think he hasn't started an awful lot of games there. Obviously, they've got Dembele and loads of stuff going on, so I could see why he would be an opportunity. Samu is still being heavily linked, but look, that Portuguese league, someone needs to go and do a few checks over there. I think Gyökeres probably will come good, but he hasn't looked great in the pre-season for Arsenal or in their opening game against Manchester United. Núñez scored, you know, a goal every 30 minutes over there, and then he's come to Liverpool and they've just sold him to Saudi for 40 million. So for Newcastle to go and spend 80 million on a Portuguese player who, as I've just said, had a fantastic year last year, scored 40 goals in a season, very young lad, 21, young lads. It's a big move for Newcastle to go and put that much money into that player. So you let me know what you think Newcastle should do. There's a few other links out there. I mean, people are joking about Calvert-Lewin. If he hadn't have already got to Leeds, then he would have joined us by now. But yeah, really strange situation. I mean, the only thing I can say is that the longer this one drags out, the more chance of Isak Scott staying. I think even if we go and... I just don't think the PIF would sanction 50 million on, never mind 60. I don't think they would sanction 50 million on WISSA because it's a player that essentially could be worth nothing in 2 years. And it's not to say that WISSA can't come in and score, 20 goals this season, possibly. Let's just give him the penalty. We'll give him the pens as well. Every opportunity to get him as many goals as possible. He could come in and be really good and score loads of goals. And we are, in theory, the richest club in the world. So who cares? 50 million, whatever. It's It's PSR. PSR. A deal like WISSA like has the potential to like cripple us for PSR, because in 2 years' time at 31, let's say 3-year deal, 32, there's a possibility that, you know, players play longer now, and I think we'll hold his value for longer. Maybe at 32, we'll give him an extra 2-year deal, an extra 1-year deal. I mean, look at Dan Burn and Shaw. You know, I'm in no rush to let either of them go. Burn just got called up for England. Shaw's actually retired from international football, so that gives him a little bit more of a break throughout the season, not having to have his international games every 4-6 weeks or whatever it is, changes all the time. But like Trippier's on his last year now. I think I would be more than happy to give him another year. So players are playing longer. Like we could have that situation with WISSA where we are giving. But like there's also the possibility that in 3 years he's like, oh, actually I don't fancy it. Or not to say he's going to retire, but he could just not sign a new deal and walk away for free in 3 years. We're not going to give WISSA 5 years. Like we're not going to realistically give him a 5-year deal. So it's a 3-year deal. And 3 years isn't that long to wait and then bog off for nothing in 3 years. So for PSR purposes, it's mad. Like 35, 40 million's already really pushing it. I can see Newcastle paying 50 just to have a striker. But when you get to 60, it is absolutely insane. So thoughts and comments on that one. Reports coming out that Newcastle are considering options. I've mentioned a few strikers there. If there's any that you like, let me know down in the comments. We're playing with fire here. Ollie Watkins is a name that's also getting mentioned. Ollie Watkins, reports were that Aston Villa wanted 50 million for him, and the reports were that Newcastle weren't willing to pay 50 million on a 28, 29-year-old. And we're going to end up doing it with WISSA. You know, despite the drama, the drama that's being made out of the WISSA at Brentford, could we turn around and go, actually, you know what then? Fine, 50 million for Watkins. I think I would rely... if we're going to spend that kind of money, I think I would be more keen to go down the Watkins route. I think he would suit our system better, and I think he's probably just that little bit more prolific in front of goal than WISSA as well, but... there you go. Thoughts and comments on that striker situation. And the one with Isak as well. I think Eddie Howe's handled it so well. It's really interesting, you know, seeing Dan Burn come out and put the knife in. I think Eddie Howe's putting the knife in. Like, you know, him saying, you know, the fans have got their own right to say what they want in the terms of chanting, the greedy Isak at the end of the game. But he didn't he didn't twist the knife. He just said if that's what the fans wanted. Like, I still like him, I'd still like to have him, but the fans are entitled to their opinion on it. And I think both can be right. I think you can slag him off for doing what he's doing, but you can also not necessarily forgive him, but get on with it if he comes back and starts scoring goals. So, but I think that's a long way off. Eddie Howe's going to punish him for longer than just, you know, the end of the season or whatever. He's going to make sure he learns his lesson. And the reports I know that he got fined. I mentioned it in my video after the game. I would love to see the food bank suddenly get a 240 grand donation from Newcastle United because we have donated Isak's fine to a local charity. That would be turning the knife and then probably pulling the gun out, to be honest, because that would be really putting it on Isak. You know what? Screw you, we're going to give the money. I mean, we could probably do with it for PSR. Like, I feel like we're a multi-million pound charity at the moment because we just never have any money, it seems. But yes, thanks for watching, guys. Thoughts and comments on WISSA and just the absolute saga that is this striker. I mean, we've done a lot in the last couple of weeks. I would still like to see more. You know, that Canuce from Leicester who was getting linked, I really liked the idea of just having someone a little bit more creative option, because we saw that against Villa as well. You know, they went down to 10 men, and we're looking around for what do we do now, because we rely so heavily on Bruno to be that creative midfielder, and he's just not the tricky midfielder. He'll play the ball in, he'll play lovely little drop balls in and little 1-2s, but we just don't really have that kind of I suppose it's a Langer, but I would like it to have it as a number 10 as well. So I think defensive wise, I think Chow's a good move. I think striker's just the key now. We've kind of brought in Ramsey, which I also like. He can play wide if we need him to be. I think you'll have a bit of that kind of like real Eddie Howe mentality of getting stuck in. And Eddie Howe doesn't really like players who are a bit, you know, a bit la-di-da. He didn't like it when Gordon got here because he was a bit like that. He's getting better at it. Didn't like Maxi, did he really? Maxi was a player who brought that little bit of flair. And I was hoping this window, because we had no PSR issues, because we had that little bit more freedom, that we could have been a bit braver and maybe brought in someone who had a little bit more flair. But we've just been so horribly held back with trudging through the trenches on this Isak striker situation. It's just not allowed us to be as free this window. I think we're in a situation now where we'll just kind of get stuck into what we've got. I mean, that's what, you know, Dan Burns said. He's like, we're here together, we're united. Eddie Howe, let's flick it on its head. It's like, we will show the world what we can do despite, you know, we've got a player here who doesn't want to play for us. You know, screw him. We're going to go and do it ourselves. And that's why I was really happy with the performance at the weekend. But you can't not feed the narrative a little bit and say, yeah, we did miss a striker. So yes, I've gone on a bit there, but I've enjoyed that one. So if you've enjoyed the video as well, drop a like and be sure to subscribe if you have not already. It's free. Just press the subscribe button. It means that my videos are suggested more often. And if you have a striker to suggest, then put it down in the comments. I'm hoping that suddenly Newcastle, boom, We've just found some unknown person somewhere for 30 million, and we'll take a punt, because I think that's where I am now. And then Isak stay, and then we just force Isak. And we force Isak out onto the pitch to play. He's on Monday night, you know, screw it, go and play. But then again, he's on strike and he's not getting paid, so, you know, even if we force him to, he's not doing it. We're just not paying him his wages. It's absolutely bonkers. There you go. I'll mention a name. This was who was it? Was it an Italian newspaper that I seen on Twitter today? Keane, the striker who was at Everton, now went to Juventus on loan. Wasn't very good. The Bolton still wasn't very good. Then he went to Fiorentina and scored, you know, a goal every 2 games for them. So, and yeah. There's just players out there that are far more achievable price tags, but you say that until we actually get in the conversation with them, and they go, how much did they want for WISSA? 60? All right, we'll sell him for 60. Like, people know where we are, they know our situation, they know Alexander Isak doesn't want to play for us. So that every corner we turn now will be inflated fees. But 60 million for WISSA, I think, is like... They were saying it was going to be done in the next 24, 48 hours, and then suddenly that price tag has gone up, has absolutely ballooned. I'm hoping that was just their final flash in the pan to try and get a bit of extra money, and Newcastle will go, you know what it is, fine, an extra 2 million, 42 million then, and it goes, right, okay, get it going. I've talked even longer. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thoughts and comments on that one. Strikers that you like, down in the comments, and I'll catch you later.